Have you ever wondered why you're not getting more speaking gigs? Maybe you've seen other people who aren't even as good as you get booked, but you're still not getting those gigs. You know your material is great. You know you have the skills. You know that when people hear you, they love you when you speak. But the problem is you're just not getting the gigs. The event planners keep passing over you for other people. And the worst part about it all is that you know you're better than the people who are getting hired ahead of you. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you what meeting planners are actually looking for and what the secret thing is that you can do to put yourself ahead of most of the competition. Now, my name is Jake Kelfer, and I'm a 4-time best-selling author who's traveled the world as a paid motivational speaker. I actually wrote my first book at 23 years old on career development as a millennial, and I was able to command $1,000, $2,000 speaking fees just a month after that. I've done talks all over the United States, all over China, all over Canada. I've charged $10,000 for a talk. I've spoken for free. I've done live events. I've done virtual events. I've created our own events. I've spoken in rooms of 10 people. I've spoken in rooms of thousands and thousands of people. And I want to just share what I've learned from my experience of building multiple successful speaking engagements and helping so many other people do the same thing. Now, the big thing that we got to address here, and this is something that not often is talked about, is meeting planners. Most of the time we think about what can I do to get more gigs? But what we forget is we forget to put ourselves in the person who's hiring us' shoes. And so that's where we need to start is we need to understand meeting planners. We need to understand how they think, what they're looking for, and then we need to position ourselves in a way that could actually get us introductions and get us books. So here's something that's really important to understand is meeting planners are not trying to take a chance on you and find the next big thing. They're not judges for America's Got Talent. They're working either contracted for an event specific thing, or this is their job where they consistently book speakers for various different events. And so the quality of the speakers they book dictates how well they're actually doing their job. And so what they're looking for is who's the best possible person to speak at this event? Who is the perfect speaker to speak to this audience? Who is the best possible person for me to bring out who knows exactly what I can teach on this topic of? Their biggest objective here is to mitigate the risk of bringing in a bad speaker. Because if they bring in a bad speaker, it can ruin an entire conference. People have spent thousands and thousands of dollars coming to their event, depending on the type of conference. And so if the speakers stink, and they're the ones that booked it, the conference fails, people don't renew, people don't come back, and then they look bad. And so our job as the people who want to be speakers is to put ourselves in these meeting planners, event directors' shoes and say, okay, how can I make myself the most appealing to them so that it mitigates their risk? How can I make myself the easiest yes for them to say and for their team to also say? All right. And so what they're thinking about is like, who can I bring in that will make me look good? Because if they bring in a speaker that everybody loves and they're like, oh my gosh, this was the greatest speaker ever, they look really good. If they bring you in and you stink, then they're going to get a lot of feedback. So why is this relevant? Well, this is relevant because if you aren't positioning yourself in the right way, you're going to get skipped over. And that's why sometimes people are getting booked ahead of you, even if they're not as good. And the reason for that is because sometimes they have something you don't have, or that meeting planner feels that they are a less risky play than you. And when you're starting out and you don't have as many referrals, as you don't have as much material, you have to figure out a way to differentiate yourself amongst the rest of these people. The next thing that's going to happen here is this. When you are reaching out to an event planner, or when someone refers you, or when an event planner comes across your name from however they find you, whether it's an AI search, whether it's a Google search, the first thing that they're going to do is what we call the Google test. So immediately, if they hear your name, however they heard your name, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to put you on a list and they're going to look at and say, hey, who is this person? Because sometimes they'll be really familiar with you. Maybe they're a fan of your work. Other times, they're not going to have any idea who you are. And so what they're going to do is they're going to do the Google test. They're going to type your name in on Google and figure out what happens next. And what they're trying to do is trying to see, does this person fit what we're trying to do? Does this person make me look good? Does this person feel like a surefire thing, or is this a risk to hire them? And so they're going to Google and find out what you're all about. Now, Most people, if you Google their name and they're in the speaking world, they'll probably have done a podcast. Some people will have websites. But the thing that really separates and the thing that really establishes the authority is having a book. Okay, because if they say, oh, this person's been on a podcast, cool. They can listen to you and see what you're all about. If they say, oh, this person has a website, they can go there and look at your speaker reel. If you have a book, not only does it stand out because not every other speaker has it, but they can imagine that if you have a book, you are a credible expert on that particular topic. And if that topic matches what they are looking for, then you are going to shortcut the line. Let me give you an example here. We had a client, they wrote a book on short-term rentals. And the event planner was looking for someone who spoke on short-term rentals. Who do you think they hired? The person that they found on Google who says, I speak on real estate with no book, or the person who literally wrote a book on short-term rentals that was a bestseller? Of course, they hired the person with the book. And that's why we want to talk about how a book is the thing that can differentiate you amongst the rest of the speakers. And I have so much personal belief in this because this is how a lot of my career started and how I was able to get gigs and transfer markets much, much, much faster. I want to give you an example of this because I think this is so important. When I was in my earliest speaking career and I wanted to book more gigs, everyone told me that it was going to take me 2 to 3 years before I'd get hired for a statewide conference. And they said, Jake, the reason for this is because you need to first meet the people. Then they're going to want to have to see you in action. And then they're going to want to make sure that you're good for their state conference. And I was like, yeah, but I already know I'm good and I want that chance. And I don't want to wait 3 years. I want to get paid now. And so what I did was I very, very strategically took the following approach. I went to the event where most of the event directors were. There was a workshop opportunity that I could do. I flew my own way there. I paid for my own hotel. I spoke for free. And what I did was, while I was there, I connected with everybody and I gave every single person that I met at this event a copy of my book. And the funny thing about this was I was like, okay, now let's just wait and build the relationship. But what happened is I got immediately flagged for the next event for these people. Most of them already had the speakers for that current year, but I was immediately on the short list for the next year's event. And I was trying to understand why. And I asked them and they said, Jake, let me be very, very clear with you. You're on our short list. It doesn't mean we're going to select you, but you're on our short list because I have met you. I have your book, and your book is exactly on the content that we're looking to hire somebody for. So I know because I read your book that 1, you have the right content, and 2, you have the right personality that we want to bring in. And that was how I was able to shorten the gap from being a 2 to 3 year out from getting on the biggest stages to being able to get on the biggest stages in 6 months or less. Now, the other way around it, I also want to share this. When I first started my speaking career, I had my book. And this was a book that I just released. It was my first book ever. And I didn't really know what I was doing. But I used my book as the entry point in and said, hey, this is my book. And if you need a speaker on this exact topic, I have a keynote and a workshop that I do related to this. So if you're looking for career development for college students, this is my specialty. And boom, I immediately got booked. Eventually, I built out more of a system and I was able to get booked for various different things. I was able to do full day workshops, half day workshops, 45-minute keynotes, 90-minute workshops, and everything in between. And so this is why a book becomes so powerful. When people Google you, your book comes up. Immediately, you're seen differently. When you put your book on your website, people assume that you're more knowledgeable on that particular topic, which again, makes your decision as a speaker, makes the events planner's decision to hire you as a speaker a lot less risky. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to find the best speaker that's most relevant to the topic. That's why I love writing really niche books. Okay. And then the thing on top of it that I experienced was that when you have a book, you can actually have more leverage in your negotiation for your fees. Let me tell you a story about this. When I started speaking and I started getting gigs, this was not the very beginning, but it was early on in my career. I had an event where I submitted and I reached out to them and I thought I was going to get this gig. And when they said, hey, we'll have a decision to you. And I was like, okay, amazing. I was fully expecting to get this gig. And I was like, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to get like $2,500. Let's go. And they reached back out to me and they said, Jake, you didn't get the gig. And I'm always in a learning mindset. I'm always trying to figure out like how to be better. And so I waited. I was kind of like, let it process. And I was like, you know what? I got nothing to lose. Let me just ask them, why didn't I get this gig? And so I reached out to them and I said, why? I thought we had a great vibe. Like everything seemed really good. You liked what I had sent in. You liked my topic. It's really relevant. And they go, Jake, I'm going to be very honest with you. I was like, please do, please. Like, I want to know why you didn't decide to hire me. And they said, Jake, because your price didn't match your level of expertise. And I was like, wait, so you didn't book me because I didn't charge enough? And they were like, exactly. Because in their mind, a best-selling author wouldn't charge $2,500 to do this particular speech for this audience. They said, had you doubled your price or even charged more than that, you would have been our first choice. So what do you think I did? I started charging more for that particular audience. All right. And so this is the really important things here. And so a book is the thing that I believe separated me in my speaking career from everybody else. It immediately gave me a leg up. It immediately allowed the meeting planners to learn my style, my personality. It allowed them to see exactly what I would talk on. So when they read my book, they could imagine I was there. They spent time with me. They invested hours learning about me and my style. And they decide that that content is what they want to bring to their event. And so that's how I was able to go really, really fast. Now, you might be like, okay, Jake, this is good, but like writing a book feels like a really big deal. I can see how it would help me, but I'm not really a writer. That's fine. That's fine. Me neither. I've written 4 books. I wouldn't say that I love writing. But here's what I want you to think about is I want you to reframe it as you don't have to be a great writer to write a great book. You just have to be able to share a great message. And if you're a speaker, you can probably share a really great message and tell some really great stories. So think about it like this. Can you talk about yourself and a particular topic for about 4 hours? Do you already have a keynote, a workshop, half-day workshop, full-day workshop, or a curriculum that you teach and that you train on? Great. That's a full-length book. Boom. You have the material that you already need. Secondly, you might be saying, well, I'm not ready. I don't have time. I'm not ready. Well, let me ask you this. Are you ready to get paid? Are you ready to get a gig? Or are you still like, no, it's fine. I don't really need to make money. I don't really actually want these gigs. I just want to complain that I'm not getting them. If you're ready and you're ready to make money, then good. If you're not ready and you want to, then fine. Keep waiting for these gigs to show up. All right. Now, of course, you'll still get some gigs if you're persistent and you try hard enough. But I'm saying having a book could potentially help. And then lastly, you might be saying, okay, Jake, let's say I invest time, energy, and money into this. Will I actually get booked because I have a book? And the answer to this is yes. The answer to this is yes. Now, of course, is there still effort? Is it magically going to happen? Are people automatically just going to randomly find you? Probably not. But by having a book, you become more searchable. You become more interesting. You become more relevant. And here's the thing. We've had so many people who write books because they want to speak. And Joe, for example, he wanted to write a book to speak. He ended up speaking at a college graduation. They bought 300 books for their graduating seniors, his ideal market. He even got invited to speak for the Houston Astros organizations. One of our clients, Ralph, he was a speaker but wanted to do more. He wrote a book. The month after he launched his book, he got his biggest paid speaking gig of his career. Why? Because he wrote a book. The book changed him. The book made him more confident. The book made him more excited. There's a lot of other things that go into this, but ultimately he had a book. He felt comfortable charging what he was worth. He got the gig. We've had so many other clients as well who get speaking gigs before their book's even out just by talking about what their book is on and the relevant topic. And so if you're writing a book, just a quick tip, if you are a speaker, let's just say I'll stick with the real estate example I mentioned earlier. If you are a real estate speaker and you talk on something very specific to you and you're writing a book, go tell these event coordinators that, my debut book's coming out. My next book's coming out. I'd love to get you a copy. By the way, what's the speaker situation, right? And you can totally do that and figure it out. So that's what I got for you. Now, if you're like, okay, let's start thinking about actually writing a book, then I want to give you my step-by-step roadmap on how to actually write, publish, and launch a nonfiction book. This is my book, Big Idea to Bestseller. You just click the link down below or go to bigideatobestseller.com/free-book. And you can just grab a free copy of this. This is the roadmap on how to write, publish, and launch a nonfiction book so you can grow your business. If you really want help and you want to build out a game plan of how a book can actually lead to speaking gigs and how to go from point A to point Z, then go to bigideatobestseller.com/call and you can set up a time with me and our team to create a game plan for you of how do we actually create a book that gets you more speaking engagements. And so there you have it. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you're starting to see how a book can help you get booked more for speaking engagements. Talk to you next time.